Hello everyone, I'm Lucy Fanger, CEO of On Technology Partners, and I'm proud to be sponsoring our new program, Women STaRs. In each episode, we will spotlight an amazing woman and the struggles and triumphs that she has faced. Then we will reflect and share her insights. Our goal is to engage, entertain, and explore the women STaRs in our world today. I hope you enjoy.
I want to thank all of you for listening today. My name is Shanti Harkness, and I'm the Media Manager for On Technology Partners, a woman-owned company addressing cybersecurity and risk. Join us as we share the reflections of women just like you that have survived struggles and embraced triumphs in their lives. Today, we'll be talking with Barbara Marlowe. Barbara Marlowe is the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for Dworkin & Bernstein Company, LPA. In addition to her regular responsibilities for the firm, Barbara oversees their Ohio Lawyers Give Back initiative and has worked with over 300 recipients of Cypre distributing more than $50 million to charity. She has served on the board of The Gathering Place, Cornerstone of Hope, and the Geauga Humane Society and Rescue Village. She is currently on the University Hospital Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital Leadership Council, board member of Dogs Unlimited Rescue, and president of the Iraqi Children's Foundation in Washington, D.C. She is also co-chair of an event called Save a Smile, Save a Child that has benefited pediatric plastic surgery at University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. Barbara lives in Concord Township with her husband, Tim, daughter, Tiba, and dog, Becca. Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, it's going to be fun. I can just tell.
Excellent. So let's dive right in. Tell us something about yourself that others may not know about you or something exciting about yourself.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I became an older mom in the year 2007. What happened was, for many, many years, I had always wanted children and was not able to have them. And so at that point, kind of devoted my life to animals and taking care of animals. And then one fortuitous day on July 16th, 2006, I was reading an article in the Plain Dealer about children in Iraq who need multiple surgeries and couldn't get them because the surgeons were fleeing the country. And, at that time we were at war in Iraq. And one of the children featured was this little girl who at 19 months old was in a car bomb with her 3-year-old brother and her father. And her 3-year-old brother, Yusuf, died, and Tiba sustained incredible burn injuries to her face, her head, and her hands. And now you fast forward to this article that I'm reading, and she's now 4 years old, sitting on her father's lap, and she had the saddest, most compelling eyes I had ever seen. And I was so captivated. And for me, it was truly one of those God moments where you just know in your heart you need to do something. And I had never done anything like that before in my life. So I emailed the correspondent in Baghdad, and I said, if I can find her the help that she needs, would you talk to the family? And he agreed. And so I set out on this journey. And that journey included meeting with one of the head doctors in pediatrics at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. It included talking to someone else at Wigs for Kids to see about getting her the wigs that she would need because she didn't have any hair. It was all burned off and would not regrow. And that's what I set my sights on. And I got her picture and I carried it with me everywhere I went. And I would go 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And it was so frustrating trying to navigate through the political quagmire that was taking place at that time, especially when we're at war in the Middle East. And to me, I thought, well, why wouldn't anybody want to help me? But I was faced with lots of people who didn't have the same compassion as I did, who didn't have the same priority as I did for this little girl. And so it took a year. It took a year to finally be able to navigate through the mess and get her here. Her parents were all on board, and they were very grateful that she could come here to get the type of help that she would need. And so ironically, 1 year to the day I read about her, Tiba arrived in the United States. And through trying to get here, and I'll never forget, I was standing in my driveway screaming at God and saying, why did you put her in my heart? Why aren't you helping me? What good are you? And just ranting and raving like this spoiled little brat. And as I turned to come back in the house, there was a golf ball marker at my feet, which I don't know how that got there. But when I turned it over, it said, God loves you. And at that moment, it was like I got this chill. I don't know how else to explain it. And I just knew at that moment everything was going to be okay. And then she arrived 1 year to the day that I read about her. And the kinds of things that have happened on my journey with her are the things that I usually read about in other books or heard about with other people, never myself. So when she arrived, she was 5 years old, didn't speak English. And I mean, when you think about that, she had parents that trusted me, a total stranger, with the care of their child across the world, is an incredible leap of faith and an incredible trust in God. And they knew nothing about us, and we really virtually knew nothing about them other than what had happened to their daughter. And she had subsequently told me, of course, through, interpreters, that I was the only person that reached out to help them. And for whatever reason, she felt it was meant to be. Her mother and I are very, very close and very connected. So Tiba arrived, and we began this process of getting tissue expanders for her. And if anybody is familiar with that, is where they put a balloon-type device under the skin. And for Tiba, she had good skin on her neck. So this balloon-type device went under the skin, and it had an outside port. And every week we would fill up this port with a saline solution, and it would grow and grow and grow until it looked like a giant bubble or a huge tumor. And when it got to a certain size, they would take the expander out, remove the burned skin on her face, and pull the new skin up and attach it. And when that healed, then they would expand the new skin, sort of like putting on a glove very slowly, and eventually you get it up your wrists. Well, eventually the new skin just kept getting stretched until it got to to where it needed to be tacked onto her face. And so subsequently, and I fast forward a little bit now, she's had 22 procedures. She's having another one the end of February, the end of this month. And she looks fabulous. I mean, she's got smooth skin. She's not perfect. She's not completely scar-free. She's got a few scars. But, none of us are perfect. But in a very short period of time, actually within 3 months, she learned to speak English. She has become a prolific writer and a public speaker. She's a accomplished academic student. She gets like a 4.4 or something like that. And she is soon to be leaving for college in the fall. We're not sure where yet, because her goal is to be a doctor and work with kids. And together, through a mutual friend, I became involved with the Iraqi Children Foundation, and so did Tiba as an honorary ambassador. And this organization helps children in Iraq who have been displaced, either through they have no parents or because of all of the horrible things that have happened with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, to help to try to continue to educate the children. We have mobile classrooms to help them with medical care, legal care, and help them to take steps forward to have their lives become more successful and fulfilled and have some of their dreams fulfilled.
Wow.
I'll take a break because I could go on, but
that is such a heartwarming story and so inspiring, and just a little bit sad that you were the only person, like you mentioned, that had reached out to help them, but how wonderful that you did, and what a great outcome came from that.
It was meant to be, Shanti. It was, my life has changed exponentially as well as hers, and her family and I and my husband were all very, very close. But through all of this, I learned so much. When you're going through all of these types of surgeries, you have this little child starting at age 5.5 up till now that goes through these traumatic surgeries, and you see her changing, her face changing, her attitude changing. It's sort of like this jigsaw puzzle that was on her face for a while with all the new pieces of skin until she finally was pretty much completed and looked like this amazing girl. And people will see pictures of her and they just can't even believe it. And along the way, she's taught others, she's taught me, she's persevered, all kinds of things. In the United States, we seem to be more embracing of people that have certain handicaps or flaws, whereas in the Middle East, they're not as embracing, and that's, from the mouth of her own mother. But she's also had, so many opportunities here now to be able to pay it forward and give back. But we have had so many incredible spiritual things that have happened along the way that it completely reinvigorated my faith, and a couple of them, one in particular was her mom was telling me this story, how they were in a pharmacy when Tiba was 4 years old, getting some creams for her face. Because, living in that kind of heat and in the desert, it was making her scars very tight and itchy. So as her mom was leaving the pharmacy, she bumps into a guy who accidentally causes this jar of cream to fall to the floor and break. And he replaces it for her. And he starts talking to Tiba. And he's from England. His wife was Arabic, and they were visiting some family in Iraq. So he was able to speak Arabic. And he asked her, what if she was Sunni or Shia. And she says, neither. I'm a child of God. And she says this at 4 years old. And everybody's looking at her like, where did that come from, right?
Aww.
And as they talked further and exchanged, there was a few other things that happened in between, but he was very enthralled with her and her attitude. And he had on a cross and he took it off his neck and gave it to her. And, she announced in this Muslim country that she's now a Christian. And, her mom let her keep the cross. Her mom is just, I don't know, she's the most wonderful person in the world as far as I'm concerned, but she let her keep it. And Tiba started to get all of these weird dreams and subsequently. And oh, let me backtrack. I'm sorry. She started to get this rash on her neck because it wasn't real gold. And so her mom took the necklace off, and that's when the dream started. And she said that Tiba would wake up screaming every night, Mom, the Virgin Mary's coming to take me away. And the Virgin Mary is also in the Quran. She wants to take me away to someplace green. And she was afraid, 4 years old. After about 3 or 4 days of this, gave Tiba the necklace back, and the dream stopped. So now we fast forward, and Tiba's coming here to the United States. And somehow along the way, Tiba loses this necklace. Her mom is very worried. And so she told me how she prayed to the Virgin Mary and said, please protect my daughter. And if anything, I'm pregnant. And if this child is a girl, I will name her Mary. And so Tiba came here, and of course she was thriving. And her mom had the baby. It was a girl. She named her Mary, and she was born on Easter.
Oh, my goodness.
Little odd things. And, I remember Tiba being in bed one day and saying to me, Mom, how come you didn't have any children? And I said, she's like 5 years old. And I said, oh, honey, God had other plans for me. I do a lot of things with animals, and I'm involved in so many other projects. She says, well, don't you know? And I says, well, know what, honey? And she says, well, my brother sent me to you to be your daughter, my brother and your mother. And I was stunned because she had just learned to speak English. She knew nothing about my family. And as we talked further, I realized that she was talking about her brother who died in 2003 in this car bomb, and my mom passed in 2003. So she's telling me that the two of them sent me to her to be her daughter.
Oh, wow.
So I've got, tons of stories about things like this, but the whole experience opened up my eyes to not just faith, but also to what other parents go through when they're faced with a child who has a lot of either special needs or injuries, which got me involved in Rainbow, of course. And so it's been quite a journey, and it has not been without its ups and downs, certainly. Over time, things that have happened in Iraq that have caused us, great concern and worry, adjusting here in the United States, having two sets of parents. 10 years went by before we were able to actually reunite with her family, with her mom and with her siblings. She's got 3 siblings at home. Her mom was having some eyesight problems, and And I said to my husband, we really have to try to figure out how her mom can see her, because if she was to go blind or anything, I don't want her last vision of her daughter to be 5 years old and scarred and scared and, all these things. She needs to see her other than in a picture or through FaceTime. So we have some friends that live in Dubai, and the only place I was able to get her mother out of and to was Dubai, ironically. So her mom and her 3 siblings went to Dubai, and we took our family and them. And that was the first time I got to actually meet her mother face to face and her siblings. And the first time Tiba saw her mom in 10 years. And needless to say, it was so emotional and so incredible and truly the best trip of my life.
That's wonderful. Oh, so inspiring. And just interesting how everything that you're sharing, you're kind of answering a lot of the questions that I had prepared for you for your interview. So would you say that what you went through with helping Tiba, would you consider that to be like one of your greatest struggles or one of your greatest triumphs, or both?
Yeah, it was definitely both. I mean, the struggles was being older parents. I mean, when Tiba came, I was in my early 50s. My husband, he has 3 grown children, and now I have a career, and now we are faced with a child who doesn't speak English, with a lot of medical needs, with a family in another country that we're at war with. And it was just navigating all of these problems and issues and language barriers. And it was very difficult. I mean, we cried and cried and cried. We gave up friendships. We gave up our plans for retirement, our financial picture, because we were so committed to her and loved her so much. I mean, I loved her from the minute I saw her in a picture. So it was really hard because, at our age, we were now virtually parents of a very young child, and we had to figure out what we had to do to keep her educated, to keep her healthy. There were some people that said mean things, and tried to navigate through all of that. And over time, it's a mixed bag. I don't know how to really explain it, but the good eventually outweighed the bad and the hard. And she grew up to be this wonderful girl. And it's very emotional. It was very difficult. And one of the things that we never talked about with her family, and they never even asked us, we've never talked about religion, politics, nothing. It was just all about this love for this little girl. And one of the things that I took away, just one little word of advice to everybody, is that I learned how to navigate through lots of problems and trials and tribulations and setbacks. And I kind of lived on sticky notes for a while, because I realized that, you go, like I mentioned in the beginning of the interview, you go 3 steps forward and 2 back. But I realized that sometimes when you're faced with a huge problem or a huge issue, and it doesn't have to be a child in your life, it could be a work project, it could be anything, that sometimes it's not necessarily good to look at the big picture. Because I know if I had looked at the big picture of all of this and realized what it would take, I might not have taken that first step. So what I decided to do is look at things in small little increments. And that could be a week, 2 weeks, a month. But whatever it is, take things in small increments. And before you know it, you're in the big picture and you've succeeded. But the big picture can sometimes be overwhelming.
Definitely. That actually answered my next question, which was, did you have any tips or tricks to use to get through those difficult or challenging times? But taking those smaller steps, I think, is an excellent piece of advice, because you're right. When we look at the big picture, it can be so overwhelming. And that's, whether it's in your personal life, like you were talking about, or professional life, you've got this huge project or, a big corporate event or, something like that. Just taking things step by step and, make those smaller steps forward to get to that big picture. So Barbara, as you have so eloquently talked about so far, we juggle as women so many things. there's career and family and household responsibilities, sometimes illnesses and caregiving. How do you maintain a work-life balance? And how do you find the support that you need to address all of those things?
It's funny how sometimes in a crisis, you find out who your real friends are, and especially in something like this, which is long term. So I found out, who my support base really was. As far as work was concerned, I was very fortunate that I worked for a firm, a law firm, or any company. I guess somebody find if they're lucky enough that truly had put, family first and was willing and understood what we were going through and allowed me that space and time that I needed. So that was very fortunate. And it was just a mindset. I mean, I am a very faithful person, and I try to rely on that quite a bit. And along the way, there was a tremendous amount of anxiety and a tremendous amount of hurt. But somehow the right people came along at the right time to help us and to help lift us up when we had those really down times. And like I said, I think what really helped was just taking it in small increments, because I knew that, okay, so I've got all these projects at work, but at the end of the day, it's all going to get done. We're going to figure it out. If I need to ask for more time or if I make a mistake, I just have to own it, and I did, because truly the priority was our daughter, Tiba. So we navigated. And there were lots of ups and downs, lots of tears, lots of emotions, lots of anger, lots of frustration. But I truly believe that whatever your faith is, if you hang on to that, it helps you a great deal.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
And the occasional glass of wine.
Absolutely. Now more than ever, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, Barbara, how would you define success for yourself? And do you have any tips or habits that help you to be successful or feel successful?
One of the things that helps me is lists. I like lists, and I get great satisfaction of crossing things off my list.
Yes.
And it's pad paper. It's not putting a note in your phone and deleting it. It's actual pad and paper and seeing it. That helps. I am also, and because I do marketing and public relations, I am a very firm believer that if you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you do it to the best of your ability. Because so many people say, well, I'll get back to you on this date at that time. And then a day, 2 or 3 goes by. So I think whatever you promise to deliver, it's very important that you deliver as much or all of what you have promised to do to the best of your ability, and to do what you say you're going to do. And people, if you make a mistake or you're running late, people don't care as long as you communicate. And I really believe that communication is essential. And especially now, because of COVID, I've always been someone that likes to meet people face to face and in person, because those relationships are critical. Anybody can blast off an email, but there's nothing better than actually seeing people and getting to know them. And you find you have so much in common, and it just makes for a much better synergy.
I love the lists. I am a big proponent of lists and crossing things off, like you said. And
there's something exciting about crossing something off of a list. Isn't that silly?
So gratifying. And I find that if I've done something that isn't on my list, I will write it on my list just so I can cross it off.
Yes, exactly. It sounds so crazy, but it's the truth.
It gives you more motivation, because you're like, I did all of these things on my list, and then I did some things that weren't on my list that I put on there, and it motivates you and just kind of propels you forward more with that forward momentum, because oftentimes, and I'm so guilty of this, I will have a to-do list that's miles long and then I'll only cross off 1 or 2 things in a day. And then I feel so defeated and deflated that it's just like, oh my God, why bother?
Well, and that's where notes comes in handy too, because sometimes you can put all these sticky notes out and you get great pleasure in ripping one off and tearing it up and throwing it away or crumpling it up,
Absolutely.
So that really, really helps. And like I said, doing what you say you're going to do is huge.
Excellent. Excellent. Love the list. Make the list.
Mm-hmm.
So, Barbara, let's take a moment and if you would just reflect on something that you wish you would have known sooner in life and share that.
I wish I would have known sooner that about my faith. That came late. I never really fully grasped what it felt like to have a relationship with a child because I never had any. And when you don't have children, you tend to be more, for lack of a better word, self-centered. And I don't mean self-centered in the way that you're obnoxious about it, but you're focused more on what you're doing because you don't have anybody else to focus on other than your husband. So the two of you sort of plod through life. And I realized that when you have a child now, and especially one who had some special needs, it's so different. The love that you have is like nothing you've ever felt before, and that's really extraordinary. And I wish I had known about that or felt that earlier, because that in itself has helped me to look at things through a different lens. And someone like me, maybe you can't have children, maybe you'll never have children in your life, but there's so many things that you can do, whether it's helping animals, which is one of my passions, or volunteering or mentoring, doing something. And in my job, one of the things about STaRs is, and that's where we distribute unclaimed class action funds to nonprofits, and which is another whole interview. But it has allowed me to really learn about so many nonprofits, specifically in Ohio, specifically in Northeast Ohio, and learn what they do and the people that they reach and the lives that they touch. And there's so many people that work and do things behind the scenes that we don't even realize what goes on outside of our own little world.
Very true. Very true. So,
Did I answer that right? Or
what's
correctly?
that?
Did I miss something in my explanation? Did I answer that right?
No, that was perfect. So what advice would you give to young women that are just beginning their careers?
Well, in addition to the two things about note-taking and doing what you say you're going to do, I always believe that it's a great idea to be dressed. When you go out, always look your best. I would go to the office even if I wasn't going anywhere, and I always was dressed. I've walked into offices where you see people dressed very casually, hair in a ponytail and flip-flops or whatever. And I just feel when you dress a certain way, you act a certain way. And so to project that professionalism, I think is very important. I think it's also very important to find things that interest you, whether it's a hospital, children organizations, something in the arts, but volunteer your time. And when you volunteer your time like that, you not only learn about an organization, but you network and you give back. And one of the things that I really believe in is networking. And I also believe that when you network with people, don't expect somebody to give you something or do you a favor because you did them a favor. And if I could take a moment to explain that. For example, somebody will say to me, do you know somebody that could help me with thus and so? And I'll say, absolutely, let me put you guys in touch. I don't expect anything back from either one of them. But anytime you can help someone else get ahead, further a cause, solve a problem, at some point in time, it somehow comes back to you in a very, very positive light. So when you do something, don't ever expect to get anything back. Don't ask for anything back. It's not quid pro quo. Do it out of your heart and do it just because you want to help further somebody else's career, issue, whatever. So
excellent advice. And I love that you mentioned, volunteering and not having any expectation of any kind of a return. It's selfless service to others without, like you mentioned, without any expectation of anything in return. And in my own experience of volunteering in that way, I've learned, to be more compassionate and to be more giving and to be more thorough. And it's just amazing the the difference that it makes in your everyday life, not just when you're volunteering or helping somebody else, that it's just, it changes how you interact with people. And it's just this amazing, powerful experience that you really have to, experience for yourself, and volunteering and serving others and helping others in a selfless manner is, I think, the best way to do that, and has so many rewards that we can't even imagine. So I love that you mentioned that. Thank you.
A lot of people think that, I don't have time, and some people truly don't have time, but there's little things that you can do. And it means so much, those little things.
They add up.
Things add up to a big thing, And I always tell people, they say, oh, well, I wish I could do what you did with Tiba, or, I wish I could do this and that. And I says, you don't have to do. This was my calling. This is what I did. But you could do something on a much smaller scale. You could do it, help a kid locally. You could help somebody in your community. There's so many things that you can do. It's not about the breadth and the expanse and going to a different country. That's not it at all. And I always say, if one person anywhere in the world helped one person anywhere in the world, we would get a lot accomplished.
And it would change so much.
Oh, yeah. And our story has so many facets to it that reach out across political, religious, cultural lines. That we were contacted by HarperCollins, and they wanted to do a book on our story. And so there is a book out now called A Brave Face, and it is written by myself, of course, my daughter Tiba, of course, and her mom in Iraq. So you have three very interesting perspectives that come together. And I've been told it's a very easy read. You can get it done in like 2 days. But and a lot of schools and a lot of organizations are using it to teach kids and to teach other adults about crossing those bridges seamlessly, because it can be done. And especially now when everything is such a political hotbed, I think that our story helps, not just because it's about us, but it helps to bridge some of those issues with people. Because you can see we all get along. We all want the same thing. And her mom and I want the same thing for Tiba. And it doesn't matter what religion, race, cultural difference we have.
It's wonderful. It sounds like an excellent and inspiring book. You said it was A Brave Face, correct?
There's another book out called A Brave Face, but you got to make sure you get the one with Tiba on the cover.
Okay. I will definitely have to check into that. All right, Barbara, we're nearing the end of our interview. Do you have any last little words of wisdom or anything else that you would like to mention before we close?
Oh my God, it's already the end.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say just, thank you for considering me, for my friend Dawn, for including me in her list of people that should be interviewed, because I think it's really important for women to support each other, to lift each other up, and to not be so competitive, to be happy for our successes, for each other's successes, and to be able to teach our girls, especially, that it's not about being the thinnest, having the blondest hair or the whitest teeth, and which is something I've always tried to convey to Tiba, that it's really about what's inside of you that really allows you to shine and have true beauty on the outside.
I love it. Excellent pearls of advice there. So Barbara, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, how would they get in touch with you?
I can give them my cell phone or email. What do you think is more appropriate, or do they contact you and then it's forwarded to me? How does that work?
No, this will be part of the podcast episode, so whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Okay, let me give you my personal email as opposed to work, so they don't end up in spam.
Okay.
And that personal email is Marlowe, MARLOWE, golfer, GOLFER, at sbcglobal.net. You can tell what I used to love to do before Tiba got here. So Marlowe Golfer at sbcglobal.net is probably the best way.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Barbara, it has been an absolute privilege speaking with you, and I have absolutely loved hearing your story and hearing you speak about your journey with TIVA. Thank you again so much for taking the time for this interview.
Oh, thank you for considering me. It really is so nice to be able to speak to your audience and hear and learn about so many other women who've had many, many trials and tribulations as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
On Technology Partners wants to thank you for joining us on this episode of Women STaRs. If you would like to appear on a future podcast episode, or if you'd like to nominate a woman to be interviewed for Women STaRs, please email stars@ontechpartners.com. My name is Shanti Harkness. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on today's journey. Remember, you are all women stars. If you wish to learn more about our Women STaRs program or want to be a guest on our show, contact us at stars@ontechpartners.com. And thank you to On Technology Partners for helping me make this program a reality. Remember, we at On Technology Partners want to help you protect your team from hackers. To learn more about our cybersecurity services, go to ontechnologypartners.com.